Hello again, and welcome back to Stress Control Session 4, Part 2. So, Part 2 is all about challenging the negative thoughts. And this is a technique called cognitive restructuring. So, cognitive restructuring is a technique to help you become more aware of your negative thoughts and then challenge them. By evaluating and challenging our thoughts, we can have a more balanced perspective. So, more balanced thoughts that more positively influence our mood. And note that I did say more balanced thoughts and not positive thoughts. We're not aiming for positive thinking while we're working through this technique, because we shouldn't all be wearing rose-tinted glasses thinking that we're perfect people living in a perfect world, because that's not normal either. We're just aiming for balanced thinking so that we're being logical and rational. Okay? So, thought challenging. If we're all on the same page, then we can agree that if we can challenge the thought, then we can stop the negative consequences from happening. By those consequences, we mean low mood, low motivation, no energy, reduced activity levels, all those things that we've talked about before. And we know that our automatic thoughts can be influenced by the unhelpful thinking patterns that we've just spoken about, and those inaccurate assumptions like mind reading, prediction, the mental filter, compare and despair, critical self, shoulds and musts, catastrophizing, and black and white thinking. So, thought challenging helps us to reach a more balanced conclusion. Like we said, not positive, but balanced. So, now for the thought challenging or cognitive restructuring. And there's a worksheet for this in your workbooks. Step 1 of the worksheet is to think of a recent negative event which led to you having negative thoughts. If we take the situation that we looked at earlier, where the person had made a mistake at work, then their mood was quite low and they felt quite anxious. Physical symptoms, they had no energy, no motivation. And in terms of their behaviours, you remember they were asking for more reassurance at work and they were avoiding making decisions. They were also becoming quite withdrawn as well. So that was their physical symptoms, their emotions, their thoughts and their behaviours. So that was their vicious cycle. Step 2 in this process is to write down really clearly the automatic thought, so the negative automatic thought. And in this example, it was, I'm useless at my job. Remember that we said that negative automatic thoughts are really believable. They are just automatic and they're persistent as well, okay? Then the third step is to write down out of 100% how much you believe in that thought. So say in this example, that person believed that they were useless at their job 90%, okay? And then the next step in this process is to look at the list of thinking errors and have you used any? So this person used quite a few here, I think, even from that one thought. There is critical self. So they're thinking that they're useless at their job, and remember, they're thinking that they've done something wrong. So they feel like it's their responsibility, obviously. They're probably mind reading. They're probably thinking that the boss as well thinks that they're useless at the job. You can see that they're probably predicting the future as well. So everybody will think that I'm useless, all my colleagues, all the other members of staff. There's also probably the mental filter going on in this situation. So they might be dismissing a lot of other positive facts from the situation. Maybe the fact that they've got a compliment from a customer. There's black and white thinking evident here, isn't there? They're thinking that they are useless, like totally useless. There's no shades of grey here. They're not just saying that they've done something wrong. The baby's out with the bathwater there. They're useless at their job. There's also compare and despair, probably. So they're probably thinking, oh, look at my colleagues, other members of staff seem to manage so well. I'm useless at my job. They could even be catastrophizing in this situation, thinking that they're going to get the sack because they're useless at their job. And there's probably shoulds and musts, I should have done this, I must do things better. So we can see a whole host of thinking errors if we look closely. So they're the first 4 steps. Like I say, that's the example in your workbook, and that's on the worksheet as well. Then we've done those 4 steps, we need to balance the thought. So first off, look for any evidence, remember facts, not opinions, that thought is true. Okay, so entertained it. The factual evidence that there might be, well, they have made mistakes at work. That's a fact. You can't get away from that. And it might be a fact as well that they're behind on the project. They might have been late for a meeting. They might have forgotten to do a certain task. So those are facts, not opinions. But then look for the evidence, again, facts that the thought is not true. Okay. So why might that not be completely true? And as it says in your workbooks, there is evidence for that. So it said managers have given me positive feedback about my work, and knowing that everybody makes mistakes, even managers make mistakes. And actually, as well, other people have complimented him on his work. Maybe he's had praise from other customers, and you can't get away from those being facts. They're not opinions, they've actually happened. Okay, so you're just weighing up the evidence there, the reasons why it's true, but also importantly, the reasons why it's not completely true. So then from the evidence, remember the evidence is made up of facts that are both for and against that original thought that is completely useless. You would then create an alternative, more balanced thought from that. So this is step 5, and in your workbooks it gives the example of an alternative, more balanced thought, and it says, just because I have made mistakes, it does not mean I'm not good enough at work. Everyone makes mistakes. And so thinking from that point of view in that way is a more positive coping thought. And that one is a lot more consistent with the facts and the evidence, okay? And then what you would look to do is step 6, re-rate your belief in the new thought. So out of 100%, how much do you believe the restructured thought? Okay, we're not looking for 100%, but we're looking to make a dent in the original thought. Okay, so if you can believe that thought, that is a much more balanced way of looking at things. That's more rational, more logical, more consistent with the facts and evidence. I'll show you another example. So maybe it's the weekend and I notice on Facebook that my friends have been out without me. They didn't invite me out when they went out on the weekend. My first thought, my negative automatic thought might be that no one wants to be around me. Now, you can probably see already the catalogue of unhelpful thinking habits there, the thinking errors, being quite critical of myself. So no one wants to be around me. What does that say about me? What kind of person does that make me? Catastrophizing. So nobody wants to be around me at all, with the worst case scenario in that situation. And we're also mind reading there because we don't know that our friends don't want to be around us. The only fact that we have is that they didn't invite us out. But despite all that, then I probably believe that thought quite intensely, say 95%. So think about how thinking like that with those unhelpful thinking habits would make a person feel. They'll probably feel quite upset, sad and low, maybe anxious about the situation and going forwards, what's going to happen when I see them again. And maybe a bit angry as well. Why didn't they invite me out? So I'm having a lot of an emotional reaction to it. Physically, I'm probably reacting too. So if I'm feeling quite sad and low and upset, it might affect my energy levels, might zap me of my motivation. So I might feel quite tired. But the part of me that's feeling quite anxious might feel that my heart's beating faster, my breathing speeds up. Maybe I feel a bit sickly when I'm thinking those thoughts. And if I'm angry as well, I've probably got that similar reaction. So it's the fight or flight response that's going on in the body, giving the physical symptoms. And in terms of my behaviours, if I was thinking that way, feeling that way, then I might want to avoid those friends, and not just those friends, maybe lots of different people. If I'm thinking no one wants to be around me, I might avoid all my family and friends because I feel really low and really bad. So it might cause me to want to not only avoid but withdraw as well. So I might stop doing things that maybe I enjoyed before. I don't want to go and play that sports that I usually go and play because those people there don't want to be around me. Start keeping myself to myself, and my world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller until I notice that I'm not doing very much at all. And like we said last time, that will decrease our energy and affect our motivation going forward. The less we do, the less we want to do. So we can definitely see how this situation would be generating a vicious cycle. And it's come from that thought, no one wants to be around me. So we do really need to challenge that thought and practice the cognitive restructuring technique on it. So let's have a look at balancing the thought out. The evidence for that thought is that the friends did go out without me. That's a fact. I can't get away from that. It's not my opinion. They did go out. Okay. But what's the evidence against the thought that no one wants to be around me? Okay. So maybe I've made excuses recently not to go out. They could have assumed that I'm busy, that I don't want to go out anyway, and so they didn't want to bother me, so they just didn't ask. The other evidence against that thought is that I haven't contacted them. So I haven't made the effort either to contact them and find out what's going on. And also, the other evidence against the thought is that my partner would say that it's not true and that people do care about me. So it's a fact that my partner has told me that it's not true and people do care about me. That's not my opinion, that's a fact. So these are just the facts from the situation. And it's the evidence that's both for and against the thought that we need to create an alternative, more balanced thought. So what's another way of looking at it? Well, considering that evidence, a more balanced thought could be, well, they do like me and I could make the effort to contact them. Okay, so this is a more positive coping thought that's more consistent with the facts and evidence. It's a million miles away from positive and wearing rose tinted glasses and being, you know, that we're in a perfect world and we're perfect people, because again, that's not normal either, but it's just weighing up the evidence and it's somewhere in the middle with all that evidence. And say the belief in that new thought is 70%, so that's pretty good going. We're not looking to believe the thought 100%, we're just looking to create doubt in that original thought, why it's not completely true and why this is more realistic. Okay. So just to finish off this section, I want to show you a video that will hopefully just consolidate the process that we've discussed. It's the court case video. So bear with me now while I play that for you.
The court case, thought challenging from getselfhelp.co.uk. In a courtroom, there is the accused, lawyers for the defence and prosecution, and a judge. The defence tries to show that the accused is truthful. The prosecution tries to show evidence that the accused is not truthful. And the judge weighs up the evidence and comes to a decision. But it's the evidence that is king. So let's take your thought to court. Choose your most upsetting thought and put it in the dock. What evidence is there that your thought is totally true? What evidence is there that your thought is not totally true? Only consider good quality evidence, facts, not opinions. Now weigh up the evidence. And then sum up all the evidence in one statement. So write your own final statement based on all the evidence. So it's a realistic, rational, balanced alternative to your thought. Something like, even though I feel this way, I know the facts, so I can download the court case worksheets at get.gg/courtcase.htm. CBT self-help and therapy resources from Get Self-Help.
Welcome back. I hope you found that video useful, just to kind of demonstrate the point that we should be looking for just facts, and as it says, facts that would be upheld in court, and it's about coming to a more rational, logical perspective. It's not completely believing either side of the story. We should be somewhere in the middle, considering both points of view. So I think that's a helpful way of considering it, as if it's a court case. Okay, so out of session work, because that's the end of session 4 today. So for homework, I would recommend that you do reread this section of the workbook again, just to get it consolidated in your mind, because like I said, this is a difficult skill to do. Monitor your thoughts using the thought record that we have in the booklets, and then practice challenging your negative thoughts by identifying the unhelpful thinking styles that we spoke about in the first part of today's session. Okay. If you're struggling with doing the cognitive restructuring, the thought challenging, the steps that we've just spoken about in the second part, then questions like this might help. So can you get any more evidence by asking somebody else, someone that you trust, about the situation? So what would a friend say in this situation? Can that help you to get the alternative perspective on it? And what would they say to you if they knew that you were thinking this way? Would most people that you know agree with this thought that you're having, this negative automatic thought? Would they agree? Would they say that that was completely true? And put yourself in someone else's shoes. So what would you say to a friend if the friend was in your situation and you were helping them? And I think a useful point of view to consider it from is when you're rating your belief in that original thought. Say you rated your belief as 60% in the original negative automatic thought, then know that that means that 40% of you didn't quite believe it, didn't think it was true. So why does that 40% of you not 100% believe it? What's going on there? And as well, you could ask yourself, if you were not feeling down, if you didn't feel trapped in that vicious cycle with the emotions, with the physical symptoms, then would you believe that thought still if that weren't the case? And obviously asking yourself, is there just another way of looking at this situation? So when we spoke about the 3 friends that were in the same situation, they each had very different points of view. Can you kind of remove yourself from that situation and looking at it from an impartial point of view, see it from different kinds of perspectives? So they're just some tips to help you with the cognitive restructuring and the thought challenging. So I hope you practice it between now and next week. Next week is session 5. And in that session, we're going to have a look at managing worries. So building upon this thought challenging, specifically the worries that we have, and looking at a technique called problem solving, which is in worry management, and a technique called worry time. And then in the second part of session 5, we're going to have a look at ways to get a good night's sleep. Quite often when we're feeling stressed or worried about things, we struggle to maybe get to sleep, or our sleep is quite broken. So we'll have a look at some helpful sleep tips, and if really needed, sleep retraining, which is a difficult thing to do, but we'll talk through that. And that's next week for session 5. So thank you for listening again today, and I'll see you all again next week.